Welcome back, guys, to Oxygen Not Included. In this episode, I'm going to be continuing to look at the hydrogen bubbler system. However, we're also going to be continuing the conversation that was in the last video where I covered the base and world tools with its latest outbreak update, upgrade, thing. And that's what I'm going to be covering a little bit today. So we've talked about the process of actually getting those YAML files or whatever those are, and I have a process that I think will actually work based on all of the feedback that I've received from you guys. So my brain is absolutely spinning because I've had to process about 200 or so comments to kind of narrow down what is probably the best workflow for sharing these files. So I will explain that more near the end. But we're going to start off here looking at the hydrogen bubbler system, which I happen to have a template for. So let me go ahead and drop this into the game, and we can see what we had last time in the last test base. This is now test base number 4. Let me go ahead and clear all this. And there we have it. That was the more or less the base setup for that hydrogen bubbler system. So over here was a liquid cooling system, and there was several comments that you guys were leaving over here about one of the main ideas was cooling down this thermoregulator. There's a much simpler way that you guys were pointing out. Not here. Where was it? Aha! There it is. It's from James. And he wasn't the only person to recommend this idea, though. But using these little Weezwarts... Here it is. Come on! This is going to be a complicated episode. Oh my gosh. Alright, so in this image here, you can see exactly what he's got going on. Just very, very simple. You got a thermoregulator with a couple of Weezwarts right next to it, surrounded by hydrogen. So that's going to be the first mod I'm going to make to this. So that's going to eliminate, well, essentially 3 liquid pumps. And that's really going to cut down on the power that we're going to end up using here. So I'm going to go ahead and deconstruct all of this. Boom! And away it goes! I guess in this case, it might be alright to make this out of Wolframite. You know, because it's thermally conductive and that's what's going on there. So, that's what I'll do. Alright, let's see if I can actually copy one of these flower pots. That would be really helpful if I could do that. Well, let's just see if it works. Come on. Pasting. Oh! Oh! Close. I'm gonna go ahead and make that just one tile taller, so you can kind of... So when the Weezwort is doing its gas thing, it can actually circulate a little bit more. That's so handy. Alright, well, here's what I can do. We'll just take Nicola, and we'll move him over here for a little bit. Plant it up. Ha! Ha-ha! See? Look at that. Good job, Nicola. Now go back over here. Okay, so there we have it. That's all set up and much more simple. So the other thing that was also mentioned here was right down here we have this oxygen, and it's very, very cold. And we were talking a lot about pre-cooling this. That was one of those topics that's actually been around since the very, very beginning of the hydrogen bubbler experiments. And so in this setup right here, one of the ways to optimize it, based on one of the comments, I just can't remember exactly which one, would be to change this spot right here into Wolframite so that the polluted oxygen that's in this chamber or wherever this chamber is could actually be pre-cooled by the liquid oxygen runoff. So those two, you'd be able to reclaim some of that energy. So that's what I'm going to try to do over here. So here's what I'll do right there. Just 3 manual airlocks just to kind of make that work. The other thing was talked about, we're not 100% sure of whether or not this manual airlock will or will not be more efficient. There's some comments over here that you guys were saying that potentially having more... Yes. Density actually increases the temperature transfer speed once it stabilizes. So if that's true, I should be able to see an increase in the liquid oxygen production just by changing the mass in here. However, before that, I have to go ahead and see just how much more efficient and just how much faster pre-cooling has made the system. Oh my gosh, I love the clear ground tool. Oh, that's the best. I have a little power base over here on the left that I've set up. And this is a blueprint. I'll cover it a little bit more later on, but we'll see how it all works. It should be enough to power just about any of my experiments. And I got a couple of duplicates in here. I got Tesla, Voltron, and Nikola. We'll see what's happening. I wonder how germy they are. Oh, you know what? Not too bad. Although this is germy. We don't want that. Disinfect. I'm looking forward to my first playthrough of this and just seeing how much more challenging it is now that we have, we have to manage all of that disease. I've heard it's pretty difficult. Look at how many puffs I got. Okay. So I'm gonna make this a nice vacuum, and then I'm gonna add some just pretty standard airflow tiles. This will be gold amalgam. And we'll do something like this. Now, it is absolutely possible to trap a bunch of morbs into space. So, what I'm going to do next here is not out of, it's not that crazy. You can't really capture them and move them. However, you can definitely get them to spawn in one spot, many times. So, I have a little morb template here that I should be able to place down. There we go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to make sure I paint that with some vacuum. So that's 10 morbs. And we'll see just how much polluted oxygen those suckers can crank out. The next thing I'm also going to do is to protect them from the temperature a little bit. So I'm going to add just a little bit of water to that space. So as far as the mass of that kilograms, I'm just going to put, let's say 100. I'll just paint that right there. Maybe I need a little bit more. It actually has to be a little puddle. Okay, so there is a puddle there. So there's liquid in both spots. That'll also mean that these morbs are going to constantly output more and more polluted oxygen because they're always in a spot that isn't already preoccupied by polluted oxygen. So I think that should cover it. This is quite a bit more simple than it was before. So now let's plug this into the power station and get things running, huh? Ooh, I got some high hopes for this. I think this is going to work really good. Look at that. All right, things are getting a little bit more simple here. Oh, I knew this was going to be awesome. And look, the temperature that's coming out of these morbs is always at that high quantity. Look at that, high temperature. So they're saving themselves as far as the temperature because they excrete it, I guess, or whatever they do, at a particular temperature, which is, I guess, right around 30 degrees Celsius right there. So the temperature has stabilized. Down here, it's cold. Look at that, negative 40 degrees Celsius. However, what's going through this pipe contains 170 grams of polluted oxygen at 20 degrees Celsius. So it's a little bit cooler. Now I want to make sure that this is above. Oh my gosh, I can type now. Yes! Okay, so right now, looking at this temperature, as far as the pre-cooling chamber goes, there's a good chance that I want to put a couple of wire bridges or maybe move this pump down, which I think is going to be my first move. I'm going to move this pump down so that it's pulling a little bit colder polluted oxygen. Look at that, negative 16 degrees down there as compared to 25 or 28 up top. So relocating that's going to be important. And you know what? For the sake of consistency, I'm actually going to mop up the liquid in here so that the morbs don't fill this chamber with just too much pressure as far as the polluted oxygen goes. Right now, I don't think they can actually keep up with this pump. So there's a chance I might need more. And what I really want to understand is just how many morbs you need, because that would be useful information. So right now we can see that we keep decreasing as far as the polluted oxygen goes. You can also see the reports of how much was used yesterday. Whoa, 613 kilojoules. What? Temperature over here is maintaining, so that's good. Oh, you know what? The morbs are catching up to that. So maybe I don't need more. Let's look at the germs in here. Oh, look at them all. So if I took a look at the temperature, you can see that, well, it's still doing its thing. And now we've gotten down to the temperature where this is starting to cycle on and off again. So that's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of wire bridges here. I'll just use Wolframite for the sake of it. And I'll try to do this number and see how that changes the temperature inside of here. It's not really doing a whole lot. You can see the polluted oxygen that's going through it though. It's running through at about negative 40 degrees Celsius. And you can see just how often this thing is cycling on and off. But this is way more efficient over here. Look at how much oxygen is down there, 150 kilograms. And look at this, the morbs are saving themselves from destruction by creating a lot of heat up there. How about that? Okay, so this is all just working out. I like it. So right now this is negative 42 degrees Celsius of the contents that are running through that pipe right there. So if I deconstruct all of these, just for the sake of it, to see if that changes my temperature at all. And then I clear the ground because that is such an amazing tool. We can see the temperature difference. So right there I saw that go up to negative 30. But now it's still right around negative 42. So I don't think it's making a big difference. Although the one thing I am seeing is that I'm only moving 200 grams or so. So I'm not getting the full pump out of that. I could move a little bit more. This isn't running as efficiently as it could. And that's mostly because I don't have enough morbs. So let's add some more morbs here. Oh, interesting. A little chlorine found its way in. Let's see what happens. I'm pretty sure it got deleted. Oh, look at the power usage. It's way lower now. 143 kilojoules? 146? Woo, buddy! That's much better. Oh, and there's my chlorine. It just turned into solids. Ha! Alright, so how are these morbs doing? I think what'd I do? I jumped up to 14. They seem to be keeping up with the system now, because this pump is not constantly running. So good. These guys over here are only moving 679 grams of hydrogen, so that could actually use a little bit more. There we go. Now I have 1 kilogram of hydrogen moving through there. Perfect. Temperature of this, look at that. It's working great. Awesome recommendation. Thanks for that. Alright guys, I think I have a very stable setup here, so I think I can go ahead and run my first experiment. What's going on over here on the left? You can see all these slimes. They are making quite a lot of polluted oxygen, and they do produce a little bit of heat. However, they're producing lots and lots of polluted oxygen, and by the time it gets through this over here on the right, to the pump, it's at negative 45 degrees Celsius. I mean, that's really cold. Down here, this is about negative 67 degrees Celsius. So there's actually some extra energy that could find its way into this cooling chamber, but for right now, I think this is a good baseline to start from here. Over here in the center, I've got this set up to negative 228 degrees Celsius because you can type it in now. Yes! Making that very easy to control. So that gets about as cold as you could imagine coming out of that thermoregulator, so I think that's a good number. So it's heading in at negative 215, and it comes out at negative 230 degrees Celsius. So actually, that could be a little bit colder. So let me go ahead and just type in negative 236. So this will run a little bit colder now. Let's see how that affects things. The trick is you want to get it as close to liquefaction as possible, but obviously you don't want to go beyond that. Negative 247. Alright, so that's close enough for comfort, man, I tell you what. Alright, so let's start up this experiment here. So starting from cycle 25, I'm not going to be able to change the mass over here as far as the oxygen. So this would be, you'd obviously be pumping this out and some of that cold would go with it. However, for this experiment, I'm just going to roll back to cycle 25 for each different variation. Alright, so here are some interesting results. The amount of oxygen that was produced was actually less than the previous test. And I'm thinking that has to do with the fact that the amount of polluted oxygen that's being pumped in is actually less, maybe, potentially, even though it is backing up in the pipe. I don't know. This is post-update, so there might have been some things that changed. The amount of kilojoules that was used is mildly less. Now, I knew that the liquid cooling system really wasn't costing us that much energy, and everything else hasn't really changed all that much except for the pre-cooling of oxygen, which I thought would have made a fairly big difference. But as it looks here, it's not better than it was before. It's actually at 4.97 watts per kilogram. So the real question is, if I go ahead and change some things as far as the mass is concerned, will that make a difference? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to try here is I'm actually going to try to increase the mass of the Wolframite in this area. And yes, I just realized that the cycle is going to be different when I start next time. So the tests will have a little bit of variance in them as far as what's going on down here, but I don't know if it'll make that much of a difference. Doing the best I can. Let's see what happens here. So this time I'm going to use mechanized airlocks made of Wolframite, which is double the mass, and I'm going to use it in all the different positions there. And let's see how that changes things. You can also see that the polluted oxygen over here on the left is actually, they stopped making more polluted oxygen because it's over 1 kilogram. Okay, so based on your comments last time as far as the different methods for sharing code and all of that stuff, well, essentially what it is, if you're not familiar with it, down here in the templates file, right down here, there's all of these YAML files, which are basically text files. So for example here, if I go ahead and look inside of that power base 3 kilowatts, you'll see exactly what is telling the game what's contained inside of that template. So rather than sending a bunch of files which has their own inherent risk if somebody wants to harm you, essentially downloading them from wherever, emailing them around, this essentially can be copied and pasted into a file that is basically just a text file with the extension of YAML. So essentially this is very, very easy to share through a couple of different methods. One of those methods, the most simplest method, is paste bin. So paste bin is just this guy right here. So I can open up this area, you know, Control A, so I select everything, Control C, copy it, go in here, Control V, and then I paste it in there and give it a name, and then I create new paste, which gives me a hyperlink. The other thing is I can also take an image, upload that to imgur.com, Imgur or whatever that is, and then this gives you a preview of what that is contained inside of there. So you can kind of get an idea of what you're downloading. Now, the ideas that I think, as far as the consensus, if I take all of the 100 comments that you guys left me and merge it all together, that's the simplest method, using paste bin and then the image system over here, just to kind of upload that. Very, very simply, you don't need accounts for either of those. And the way to keep this organized is to be using the Oxygen Not Included Reddit page. So I've uploaded this as Power Base 3 kilowatts blueprint, and what you can see here is a couple of different links. So you have the image, and then you have the paste bin. But the other thing is GitHub. Now, I'm not sure a lot of people are really going to take the time to learn GitHub, but there are going to be some people that are interested in the whole GitHub thing. So if I click on GitHub, what you'll see here is I have the actual direct file itself and then the image file. So you can click on that and see exactly what is there, and then the version of the file. So you can see here that the version that I have in game, I found that there was a little bit of a problem with it, so I've modified that. So this will actually show the history as far as what's going on here with GitHub, and people can actually pull down the file and recommend different changes to it. It might be a little bit much for what's going on here because you're not going to be able to compare the text in any sort of meaningful way because this thing is just ridiculously long and it's kind of impossible to read through it. So it's not your typical, you know, method as far as code. So I'm not sure this is really going to be as useful as far as the more simple method. Alright, so I'm going to run through the process here. I've made some modifications. I want to update those files and then share it. You know, the end result to have an updated file thing on the Reddit. So I'm going to go ahead and use the base and world tools to select everything here. So that gives me all the power and everything. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this, it's going to be the power base 3 kilowatts. And then I'm going to have V2 after that because this is version 2. So I'll save that, and you can see right there I have the version 1 and then version 2. If I go back on over to my templates file, you'll see that I now have, well, that file. I'm going to deselect everything real quick, and then I'm going to use the snip tool. Just a new snip. I'll select everything. I don't know if this is showing up or not as far as the recording goes. Maybe, maybe not. And then I'm going to save that one out as the exact same sort of thing, just V2. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to upload is the image file. So I just hit new post, and then if I go to my desktop, I should see this right there. So that is the V2. And then I'll upload that sucker. Boom. That gives me my new link, which I can copy right here. I know there's a lot of stuff going on here. And now I have to edit this guy, actually, because it's going to be a different image. And then if I wanted to update my paste bin, I'm just going to make a new one. So I go over to the templates file, open this guy up. I just hit Control-All, Control-C, Control-V, and then the paste name is actually at the very top of here. So you can see that. Boom, create new paste. So there we go, that's all been done. And then I just do raw and copy that link. There we go. So I've copied that stuff out, so that's all been updated. It's a little bit more laborsome to update something like this than it is to update the GitHub. So there we go. Those have been updated. Crap. Come on now. Give me some space between this stuff. How about that? There we go. A little bit better. And then as far as the files go, well, I've just updated the files that's in this collection. I didn't like alter the code and suck in the different code, although that is, I guess, how you would properly do the revision control, but you can see right there why I don't necessarily think GitHub is going to be the exact process for version control, but it is a good place at least to group everything together so that other people can download it. So I'll comment changes right there, and then that'll take care of that. So now when you click GitHub, this shows up and you can download those files right there. Actually, you can click on this one, you can see the code first before you download it, you know, to make sure that I'm not sending you something suspicious. So there we go. That's actually, I think those are at least two methods right now that I think are going to work out. And as we can see, we can also do some sort of recommendation thing down here. So that'll be all good. We'll continue to work with this, and I'm sure we'll find something that'll work out just great. But that's the process. It's not too terrible. So hopefully that works out for everybody. And as you can imagine, this thing is still taking a little while to cool down. Look at all those cycles that have gone by. It's going to take 10 cycles just to cool this down. Alright, so there we go. Now things are starting to move. We'll let this stabilize for a few more cycles, and then we'll give it a... We'll see how it measures out. Oh gosh. Oh, we got some serious food poisoning going on here. Oh, everybody's sick. Oh, this is horrible. Alright, I think I'll have to change this plan at some point and go with chlorine as my, you know, my chamber instead of helium. I thought that would have been fine with the hand sanitizer here. Alright, so I think the system over here on the right has stabilized. Now the one thing I'm seeing is actually quite interesting. It's that the temperature won't go below negative 192 degrees Celsius. So it's bottomed out as far as the amount of energy that I'm pumping into this system. It's converting it as fast as possible. So I think we've hit a ceiling there as far as what's going on. So either the oxygen needs to get colder coming in, or something else has got to change, but I don't think I can actually convert more polluted oxygen with what's going on over here. So I think these made a pretty decent difference. Oh my gosh, stop getting sick over here. You guys are destroying me. Oh well, I'll have to do some more work on this so that it's stable and people stop vomiting all over the place. One thought might be to add some like Wolframite lamps or something to this. Just to kind of, because this is going to be liquid and above it's going to be gas. Nope, didn't seem to make a difference. However, that would definitely make sure that it does boil off, so maybe that's a good idea. Alright guys, so let's see the test results for this setup right here. So the first and most noticeable thing is how much more oxygen we're converting. So we're right back to where we were last time, being at about 130 kilograms a day, which is pretty good. The amount of kilojoules on average that's being used is 189.2, so that's actually quite a bit more efficient than where we were with the last setup and the setup before that. So that's all real good. So those results come out at 2.41 watts per kilogram, and it actually gives us a decent amount of oxygen. So right there we can see that Video Games was absolutely right when he was saying that the density actually increases the temperature transfer speed, and in effect actually makes this quite a bit better. So that's pretty awesome. I like to see that. So there we have it. I think that is a fairly easy to set up and, you know, easy to run hydrogen bubbler system as far as its conventional methods. However, somebody decided to go a little bit further and give us another idea of how to make a hydrogen bubbler system. Question is, where was that comment? I am like drowning over here. Where is it? Ah! Yes, no, no, yes. Here it is. Emily. So Emily created a hydrogen bubbler system here that runs off of liquid oxygen. So I guess you use a conventional system to make liquid oxygen, and then that gets pumped through pipes, which actually transfers the energy. So she sent, in this case, the file. So I'm going to go ahead and see what that looks like. So the oxygen bubbler system by Emily. Let's see here. What do we got? I drop it in right here. The game's not letting me see it. All right, so let's see what's going on here. Emily has some polluted oxygen over here on the left at 26.8 degrees Celsius. We can see the gas is getting transferred into a spot where it's just going to then get transferred out. We also have a radiator set up, and that is using Wolframite pipes. Some of them that are a little bit broken for whatever reason. So I'll go ahead and fix those. It'll probably break again next time stuff pipes through it. So where is the power? Where do I plug it in? Oh my gosh, this is gonna take so much power. Luckily I should have a lot of power. Alright, let's see if it can run off of 3 kilowatts. I wonder if these hydro switches reset each time. That might be a problem. So I would say if this is above 500 kilograms, right? It's gonna start moving through here. And this should in fact cool down the polluted oxygen. Now some things are gonna break because they're just too hot. Maybe that doesn't matter. Alright, so that is a radiator, a liquid radiator. And it's pumping back over here and then dripping back in. So this is constantly using a little bit of liquid oxygen. So that liquid oxygen is coming out at negative 200 degrees Celsius, but it's being pumped up. Honestly, about the same right there. So there's actually quite a bit of liquid mass that's being moved through here. I guess the idea here is that that liquid oxygen builds up to a point where it finally touches this pump and then gets pushed out to see just how much we have. So that's how the experiment runs. Oh my gosh, all my people are gonna get... Ow! Stop throwing up on stuff! So according to her results here, I got around 175 to 200 kilograms per cycle for 1,340 watts. Okay. So that's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome to see, you know, exactly what people are doing here. Which leads me to the last and final point here. So now we've developed the method as far as being able to share the blueprints with the new ability here. So this is going to be our very first design challenge, and that is going to be making a hydrogen bubbler system, the best one you could make. You have a couple of rules though that we're going to have here, is that you need to have a power inlet so that I can use a power station that can supply up to 3 kilowatts of power directly to your unit, and then have it set up and be ready to test so that I can get some sort of measurements and do kind of my numbers there at the end. And that will be hosted here on Reddit. So there will be a link down there in the description below, and you can post in your information that you have there. So an image and then the actual text file itself, so that I can actually bring the blueprint in and we can do a little bit of the experiment there. So this is crowdsourcing, but this time you guys are making the blueprints. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. So we will run this event from the time that this is uploaded, and then the deadline for that will be Thursday night around midnight or so that I can make the video on Friday. We're going to jump into this with like both feet. I'm not sure exactly how this is all going to work out. I'll update the rules and all that information on the Reddit post itself, but you can look for that down there in the description below. The other thing is I will be refining this system until it works and works perfectly. So you can check out the link there, so you can probably use that within your setup as well. So you don't have to make it part of the blueprint, but just so you know what I'm going to use, that's the connection, right? At any rate, guys, that's all I have for you guys today. I'm really looking forward to it, and thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down there in the description below, comments and all that fun stuff. And if I've earned your subscription, then thank you so much for that. Have a great day, guys. Peace. Brothgar out.